G'day everyone, it's me, the anti-theocrat, back for, I think, the 15th take trying to get this one done. If it's not the fucking article trying to kill me, it's cats trying to screech their way through my office, or kids running up behind me to ask me if they can eat carrots. So this is me, the anti-theocrat, back again, and striking off with the virtue signal. Yes, the virtue signal, it lights the sky, and as only one superhero can, it shall be answered in the most virtuous possible way. Who is that hero, you ask me? Who can answer the virtue signal in the way it's meant to be answered? Only the Guardian. Sorry, I've had to do this like 15 times, and it's just getting worse, I think. Yes, The Guardian, everyone's favourite piece of trash writing. This is in culture and art and design under architecture. Yes, normally these would be opinion pieces, but this one is under architecture. So, moving on. Let's see if I can get through this without dying of laughter. Upward thrusting buildings escalating into the sky. Do cities have to be so sexist? It's a very stupid question right off the bat. Toxic masculinity is built into the fabric of our urban spaces, writes Leslie I'm a fucking retarded bitch Kern, author of a new book, Feminists Are Fucking Retarded in the City. And the results aren't just divisive, they can be lethal. That's right, our cities by very nature of their sexism are lethal. It's fucking terrible, isn't it? Now, if you thought this was an Onion article, you might be right. Because in order to make this more Onion-esque, they've used this image. More additions to the phallic parade, street bridges over the Chicago River. Yes, the street bridges are in a raised position, all bar one that I can see down the river, because these bridges raise in order to let shipping through. That is the nature of what they are built to do. But apparently their upright, erect nature means that they look like my fucking dick. I'm telling you now, my dick looked like that, I would be panicking, especially if it was that fucking rusty. Any case, this didn't make you feel like you were reading an Onion article. Reading this, nothing fucking will. If this doesn't get to the end and say this is pure satire, I don't know what I'm going to die in a corner laughing. Okay, so Leslie Kern, providing this is not satire, Leslie Kern, the retarded bitch, says glass ceilings and phallic towers, mean streets and dark alleyways. Hang on. I thought we were describing phallic structures here. What's this mean streets and dark alleys? Are we describing crevices now? Is this straight off the bat? Have you gone to describing how cities look like fucking vaginas? Are you serious? Are you serious? You went from phallic towers to fucking dark alleys, crevices in between the towers. Oh, for fuck's sake. Road names and statues of men. Well, if the women want to be up there, the women have to achieve the great things that the men have. And I understand that from a historical perspective, female leaders are not all that well represented. And when they have been, they've been the Joan of Arcs with their fucking mental illness and talking to God and going on rampages that get them burnt as a witch. Now, if you want the statues to Joan of Arc, that's fine. You have that statue, and you explained to me why you needed the statue of the retarded little girl. Because, I don't know, maybe you'll put Greta up next to her. They can both be retarded together. For fuck's sake. I'm going back to this one, right? Mean streets and dark alleys. Stop describing vaginas at me. And yet we rarely talk about the urban landscape as an active participant in gender inequality. Really. The urban landscape is a participant in gender inequality. What's it doing? Is writing articles telling us how cool it is to be a fucking great big tower in the middle of the great park of hairy trees. Fucking hell. I'm sorry, I'm going to die trying to get through this. A building, no matter how phallic, are all buildings phallic, isn't actually misogynist, is it? I wouldn't think so. I really wouldn't. And I'm not sure why you think buildings are phallic. I'm pretty sure that if you were designing a structure to go up in a city, you would try to avoid it looking like a great big fucking shafting penis erect into the sky. You might just do some things to that structure in order to make it look slightly different. Surely a skyscraper isn't responsible for sexual harassment. You asked that question. The wage gap, which doesn't exist, and even the glass ceiling, which surely doesn't fucking exist. That's all in your fucking imagination. So I'll stick with the factual bits. The most interestingly, no, I can't. I can't use the word factual or interestingly on target or anything like that for this. I will stick with this bit of this statement. Surely a skyscraper isn't responsible for sexual harassment. Fucking hell. I'm sorry. Whether it has a literal one up top or not. What? Oh, God. This is what passes for writers these days and professionals, or whatever the fuck this retarded woman is. That said, our built environments can still reflect patterns of gender-based discrimination. Can they? I thought cities represented the value of land space in those places. So you put as many structures that hold people on top of one another in order to maximize the value that you get out of that space. If a city block is worth $50 million, you've got to fit $50 million worth of business activity into that or housing into that structure in order to pay for it. See, I thought that's what it was about. But it's apparently gender-based discrimination. To imagine the city and its structures as neutral places where complicated human social relations are staged is to ignore the simple fact that people built these places. Yes, people. People trying to make money. People trying to maximize the profits on a piece of land. People. It has nothing to do with social relations. As the feminist geographer Jane I'm a fucking retarded bitch too Dark has said, our cities are a patriarchy written in stone, brick, glass and concrete. Is that why they have all these fucking dark alleys? You and your fucking vaginas. Our cities are patriarchy written in other words, cities reflect the norms of societies that built them, and sexism is a deep-rooted norm. No, it fucking isn't. They're buildings. They're structures. They hold people. They hold their businesses. Some hold their housing. They're structures. They're structures. They're the most efficient structures that we can come up with as human beings to fit as many people in as few blocks as possible. It's that simple. As far back as 1977, they were fucking genius level back in 77. We've done no growing since 77. An American poet, well, we should fucking kiss the feet of that person. Absolute fucking genius. Professor of architecture, named Dolores Hayden, wrote an article with the explosive headline, fuck, I'm having trouble reading that one. Skyscraper seduction, skyscraper rape. I'm sorry. Sorry. I haven't read this article. I couldn't get through the first couple of paragraphs the first few times I tried to record this, and it's only getting worse. Skyscraper seduction, skyscraper rape. Hayden, who is a fucking genius, tore into the male power fantasies embodied in this celebrated urban form. Rape. I'm sorry. Those fucking raping skyscrapers. The office tower, she wrote, is one more addition to the procession of phallic monuments in history, including poles, obelisks, yeah, I'm terrible with that word, spires, columns and watchtowers, where architects unironically use the language of base, shift and tip. I'm drawing up. Five minutes later. As far back as 1977, we'll try and get through this time, an American poet and professor of architecture named Dolores Hayden, the dumb fuck, wrote an article with the explosive headline, I would say retarded headline, of skyscraper seduction, skyscraper rape. That's right, those towers, they dig down into the ground, into those fucking crevice-like vagina spaces that we call dark alleys and shit. Yes. Fucking, they're raping the ground to buggery, those damn towers. I bet you were thinking of them the other way up, weren't you, woman? Hayden tore into the male power fantasies embodied in this celebrated urban form. See, I have trouble believing these people have anything to do with teaching other people. They're just fucking idiots. The office tower, she wrote, is one more addition to the procession of phallic monuments in history, including poles, obelisks, spires, columns and watchtowers. Yes, she expects poles, obelisks, spires, columns and watchtowers to all be laid flat on the ground, especially the watchtowers. You can see a long, long fucking way away when you're laying down on the ground, looking like a vagina slit. I'm sorry, I'm going to lose this again. I'm going to fucking lose this again. Where architects unironically use the language base, shaft and tip while drawing upward thrust in buildings, ejaculating light into the night sky. Ejaculating light into the night sky. Fucking hell. These buildings are such rapey things. You know. Believe it or not, I had to walk away from this and come back. It's just... look, if The Onion had written this, they wouldn't have done it any better. Seriously, if The Onion had written this, they wouldn't have done it any better. This is exactly their line of work. If the sexism of the city began and ended with architectural symbology, I would have happily written a grad school essay about this and turned my attention to more pressing matters. Oh, for fuck's sake. We're going to move away from architecture, aren't we? But society's historical and ongoing ideas about the proper gender roles for men and women. Historical ongoing ideas about gender roles exist for a reason, and you retarded bitch, You know who's given me the most grief about being an at-home father for the last 22, 23 years? It's fucking women. Feminists are the worst of them. So don't fucking give me this gender roles shit. You perpetrate that crap. Anyway, organised along a narrow binary. That's because we are a binary species. It is male, female, child, right? Dick, vagina, produce little kid, sproglet. That's how it works. Lesbianism, homosexuality, these are abnormalities. And you may take offence to me describing it that way, but it is the truth. They are not the norm. It doesn't mean that within the context of human experience and human evolution and all the rest of that fucking shit that goes on, that they haven't developed as part of what we are, but the norm for our species is a binary. Everything else is an abnormality. That's how these things work. But these are built right into our cities, and they still matter. Oh, for fuck's sake. But this has moved away from architecture. This is now the evils of male-run patriarchal societies. So all that other shit about buildings thrusting upwards, the fact that the words base, shaft, and tip describe pretty much anything that has a base, a shaft, and a tip, and it does it for a reason. It is not essentially to do with penises. In fact, I would argue that there are other languages that probably do not use these words, may not even use similar words to describe the format of a penis. They might call it the crux and the longitude and the end within their own linguistic styles. Base, shaft, and tip describe a length of something, a rising length of something that has a base, because you need a base. Do you teach, or does this other idiot woman you were talking about teach that you should rest skyscrapers 6 inches off the ground? Are you that fucking retarded? The shaft is the length to the top. It's that simple. A rod, a spear, anything has a shaft. A stick essentially has a shaft. But this is, again, English, right? This is the English word for these things. This is not universal, you stupid idiot. They matter to me as a mother. So, let's see. As a mother, you're teaching your child that you stick the building in the swimming pool, are you? Rather than the birds and the bees? Because did you know that there are fucking shitloads of backyard barbecue swimming pools, indoor swimming pools? There are swimming pools everywhere. Do you think that their vaginas, you know, big gaping wet vaginas just waiting for the erect cityscape to enter into them and make them, and on the weekends we'll jump in and we salivate at the idea of jumping into the swimming pool vagina and diving into its depths and that's how you sound. You're that retarded. Okay. I don't know how to keep using that word retarded, because there's a difference between someone who has a mental disability and a fucking retarded bitch. They matter to me as a professor who often finds herself in strange cities. Well, I'm concerned that you are a professor of anything, that you think you can teach anybody anything, because you are a moron. In any case, cities are never strange, right? I've been in European cities, Australian cities, Chinese cities. I've been in cities all over Southeast Asia. Cities are not strange. You are an idiot. Why are you writing about architecture? Why are you involved in architecture? The only thing that changes between Sydney and Shenzhen, for instance, is that one of those cities has a lot more tall buildings because it has a lot more people. But when you're down in the vagina valleys of the city, the only thing that changes is what the people look like and how bad the Chinese cities smell. Although I must say they have gotten better. But it's a difference between the Australian city and the Chinese city. That's the only one. The people look different and the smells are worse in one of them. Wonder if it's okay to pop into the neighbourhood pub alone. Don't enter the pub. It is going to rape you, but more importantly, nobody in there wants your company. So just take it for granted that it is rapey to go in pubs, so we don't have to put up with insufferable bitches like you. And ask any woman who tried to bring a pram onto a bus, breastfeed in a park, or go for a jog at night. Where's the architecture in this? Explain. Look, all you've done is give us some fucking nice words, catchphrases and shit. And then you went off in this rant about society. You've strung this rope around the fucking tree without the tree being there. There's nothing. There's no fucking... The Christmas lights are just hanging on air. There's no argument. There's no substance to this. Okay, we're going to try and get through this. Wonder if it's okay to pop into the neighbourhood pub alone. Any woman who tried to bring a pram onto the bus... Look, I've been an at-home father for 22 to 23 years. I'm not sure how exactly. My oldest son's 22, I think. I don't know how old I am, so is it unusual? I don't know. It's surprising I don't know how old he is. In any case, because I know you'll hold it against me, won't you? Oh, fucking, how can you not know how old his son is? I don't know how old I am. I really don't. Ask any woman. Yeah, look, this is just bullshit. This is really just bullshit. For starters, a guy is in more danger jogging at night. A guy is going to get less offers for help trying to get a pram on a bus, and most buses now don't have steps, and they have drop suspension to let you get your damn pram on. Breastfeeding in a park is as common as muck. I mean, don't get your tit out in front of the children at a primary school, but in a park, nobody's going to bother you too much if you slip one out and give it to a baby. I've seen it happen often. So, I think either you've not been a mother for a long time, you maybe your kids are old, maybe they're as old as mine or older, and so you're buried in the past. But trust me, the world has progressed a lot. And in any case, it was still men who were in more danger jogging at night and who were going to get less offers of help to get that pram on a bus. And the people who have discriminated against me most often for being an at-home father have been women, and especially feminist women. So, yeah, I don't need this shit. You propagate this situation. So don't fucking come at me with your, oh, but it's so much harder for us. If it wasn't harder for you, you'd have nothing to fucking whinge about. And it's not anyway. You still whinge about it. She intuitively understands the message the city sends her. This place is not for you. Bullshit. A woman is safer anywhere than a man. I don't know how often we have to see a video of a man being beaten up for pushing a woman off who was trying to beat him up. And everyone comes to her rescue. She was the one violating him. He pushed her off and he gets beaten up for it. Don't fucking give me this shit about women are not welcome. Okay, the image on screen. This place is not for you. A woman walks through an empty car park at a mall in Atlanta, Georgia. Oh yes, look at the fucking threatening white lines down there, and no man ever fucking walked across it and wondered if someone was going to come after him. No. It's this woman walking across an empty car park. Empty car parks are very threatening, you know. They have big, wide open spaces where you can see people coming at you from all directions. And the most dangerous thing about them is the white lines. It's terrifying, terrifying stuff. Are we convinced yet that this is an Onion article? Yet the city can be a place of great freedom. The anonymity of urban life breeds possibilities easily stifled in a claustrophobic small town or suburban enclave. What? Look, I grew up in suburbia. I'm essentially a city boy, but I've become a country boy. I was a country boy at heart. My father's family are from the country. I loved the country. I moved to the country as an adult, however. As a child, most of my life was spent in the suburbs. And it's not fucking claustrophobic. What are you on about? What the fuck are you on about? Now, small towns are not claustrophobic either. I live in small towns. It is my choice of places to live because the cities are fucked. Don't you know there's fallacies? There's phallic fucking things everywhere. You know, walk through those fucking vaginas all the time. Who wants to live in those places? They fucking smell those vaginas. Everyone just drops their shit into the vaginas and they don't clean them often enough. Sorry. So don't you fucking give me that shit about claustrophobic little towns. Yes, I know everybody fucking has an idea who everyone is in a small town. But that's not so terrible. It means that we know each other and we can deal with each other at a more personal level. Education, work, pleasure, politics. The city broadens our horizons and gives us choices for our foremothers, choices our foremothers never had. Just so you know, we own fucking washing machines out here too. We do. We do own washing machines. And a range of people know how to use them. I mean, I live in a mining town, and you'd be quite surprised to find that a lot of the miners are single guys and they clean their own laundry in a washing machine. You're a fucking idiot, woman. You're a fucking idiot. This is the paradox that drove me to write a book rather than a grad school essay. Let's face it, you've never fucking lived outside your comfy little fucking privileged city lifestyle, have you? And if you did, it was when you were under mummy's skirts and you never fucking really experienced life. That's why you wrote a book rather than a grad school essay. Yeah, you wrote this book when you were a retarded child. That's worse than writing it as a retarded woman. You know that, don't you? Twice now you've referred to this book as a grad school essay. Do you realise how fucking lame this book sounds now? How fucking half-assed? Feminist city, claiming space in a man-made world takes on fear, motherhood, friendship and activism, as well as the joys and perils of being alone. What the fuck? So you're a single woman? Well, that's easily explained by this article, I'll tell you. So you're a single mother. You've got your feminist friends and activists, which, by the way, activists are never your friends. As long as you're with the cult and with the program, they will treat you as thus. And the minute you step outside the circle, you will lose them all, every fucking one of them. They will pass the message around between them all that you are not the person they thought you were, that you are something else, and we can't have something else's. So I'm going to assume you don't actually have friends, you have associates. It's like in my 20s. I used to dry out occasionally. I'd stop taking drugs for a bit. And you know how fast I'd find out who my friends were? Matter of days if I didn't have drugs going around somewhere. Matter of days. As well as the joys and perils of being alone. Yes, single motherhood. Oh, what a joy. To show not only where our cities have failed, but to imagine what they could become. What? Flat. holes in the ground, divots, slits in the earth, swimming pools. Is this what you want? All office buildings will now be built into the ground and we will fill them with water. In fact, forget that, we'll fill them with lube. During the Industrial Revolution, the populations of European cities and many others in the colonised world grew rapidly. Yes, they did. They became flashpoints for moral panic about how gender norms were changing. No, they didn't. No, they didn't at all. See, there was a time in history when men were expected to go out and earn while women took the job of being the person raising the child and seeing to the home. This was the accepted jobs. But there are many examples through history of women stepping up to the game and taking over the role of earning the earning capacity of the family because, well, the man couldn't for some reason or another. He'd been incapacitated or killed or had gone to war or something, and then women stepped up to the plate because what you talk about here is essentially you think women never took responsibility for anything. Women were just slaves. But the truth is that historically women took responsibility for their lives, and they took responsibility for their families, and they took responsibility for their part in existing. And so when the responsibility fell on their shoulders to go and earn, they did. And it's only morons like you who keep the idea alive that women were only ever secondary. Women were never secondary. Women were an important part of family and survival as a species. All right, the caveman went out and he hunted and risked his life. And when he came home, if he came home, he found the women had collected berries and other things which added to the diet of the tribe. They raised the children with a healthy diet of berries and other things, plus the meat brought home by the hunters. And all of this is how people were up until recent history, when the idea single mothers like yourself became so fucking popular because you decided you didn't need men. And now we have children suffering the outcomes of that because it turns out that men father in a different way to you idiot fucking women. No, I don't mean all women. I mean you, the idiot ones. Because I have 2 female partners. I'm not anti-woman, but I am fucking anti-you. And don't worry, my partners are anti-you too. I'd have no trouble getting that out of them if they read this article. Seriously, my wife has got me to create a design around an idea for her about women taking responsibility for their lives, for the actions in their lives. And so she wears a shirt now. Like I said, she came up with the idea. I merely did the graphics. But it's Rosie the Riveter. And it is the we can do it message. But underneath it, it is subtitled with and take responsibility. Because that's what feminism did to women. It took away responsibility. It placed all responsibility on men. And that's just fucking retarded. Are you children? Are women just fucking children? I don't think so. Now, as you have taken tangents through this, away from the architecture, so will I. Now let's get back to the article, shall we? Echoing department stores and New York Ladies' Mile, a stretch of shops for the well-to-do created at the end of the 19th century for women. We get this, won't we? New York's Ladies' Mile, a stretch of shops for the well-to-do created at the end of the 19th century. Who in particular was this focused on? New York Ladies Mile. Can I say it and emphasize that any harder for you so that you fucking understand what you've written here? Is this a sign that the world is created around men? That there was a New York Ladies Mile? New spaces and entire urban districts were built with the intention of controlling high status... Controlling? Well, I'm going to highlight that word. High status white women's exposure to the messy public realm. The fuck? What the fuck are you on about, right? Apparently there was a mile of New York dedicated to these women going out into these areas, these urban built-up areas, that apparently you think that's controlling them and keeping them away from the messy public realm. I don't believe that for an instant. I don't think that Eleanor Roosevelt was a woman who sat back and didn't play a part in her husband's affairs. I think 150 fucking %, yes, 50 above the actual ability to measure in percentages correctly. Yes, Eleanor Roosevelt was a woman who was there with her husband. I have no doubt of that. No doubt of that at all. But you think that because there was a mile of shops, it was about controlling the status of these women and keeping them away from the public realm. Fucking historical rewriting, that is. After all, what would be worse than being considered a public woman? Well, it was actually an enviable thing. It fucking was. To be the woman who was there, able to meet men in their own domain. Yes, I'm going to use those terms because essentially it is the men who were in those domains. It still is, because men put in the hours, the effort, and they will sacrifice family and other things to be in those positions. Things women won't do, or tend not to do. But for a woman to stand alongside a man and meet him idea for idea, word for word, has never been a terrible thing. I don't know if you know this, but there was a woman who died of radiation poisoning because of her discoveries in the field. She was a scientist of great repute. Fucking hell. Just write off and ignore every fucking woman who ever achieved anything, won't you? A haven for high status women. This is a picture on the screen. Ladies Mile, New York in the 1890s. A mile of well-decorated, well-proportioned, well-stocked shops just for women. And you think that's about them being repressed? Fucking hell. At the other end of the spectrum, those who fell into grinding poverty or sex work. For fuck's sake. So you think that everyone who wasn't well off was in grinding poverty or performing sex work? Are you saying that my family, who were essentially in this area that you have described here, right? Not the grinding poverty. I don't know that my family were ever in grinding poverty, but they were never wealthy people as I understand them. So you're saying they were all fucking sex workers? Well done you. Thanks for the fucking... I will take that as an insult. I've known too many sex workers to not take that as an insult. We're also in need of tight control. Yes. Money and power. This is what that's about. Money and power. You've put it in... You've almost caught onto something here. Money, power, wealth. We'll just say wealth is the great... It's a great dividing factor between classes of people. Not power. Power comes from wealth. Working women were blamed for the breakdown of the traditional family and its consequences. No. Feminism broke the traditional family. Namely, men straying into gambling and an alcohol addiction. All men? Fucking hell, how did we get this far? Even Frederick Engels, okay, odd person to be noting there, but okay, feared that women working outside the home was too great a disruption to society. Yeah, because women worked hard in the home and men worked hard out of the home to provide for those women to be able to do that. And then some Burke invented the fucking washing machine and the women were free to go out and disrupt society. Okay, I abbreviated that an awful lot, but that is not actually a bad representation of the history that feminism has brought upon us. And not just feminism, but modern tools, right? Everything we have now. I chuck some stuff in the air fryer, I walk away for it for 20 minutes and do something else. Right? I couldn't have done that when I was a child. When I was a kid, those tools were not available to me, that they reached a point where they went ding, turned themselves off, and all I had to do was be in earshot of the ding in order to get a hot lunch. I mean, this is within my lifetime. So society changed a lot around its technology. It also changed a lot because of feminist ideology. Charles Dickens suggested that the fallen woman should be diverted to the colonies, where their low status could be ignored by the surplus of men in need of wives. You know, actually that's for the time, because I know you're judging that by today's standards, but for the time, it's actually not that terrible a thing. A lot of women did very well by going to the colonies. They married better than they would have had they stayed in the UK. They managed to open shops and form careers where they wouldn't have in the UK. So it's not actually a terrible idea. This thing you're doing here with coming down on Charles Dickens at his time, this was actually a viable idea for women to get out of their ruts. Something that was harder for men to do because men can't just marry wealth. That's what women do. Anyway, we're still slipping further and further away from the fucking phallic buildings, aren't we? This is all just fucking feminist theory turned into drivel about buildings. And I still want to know about the lube-filled swimming pools and the fucking disgusting, dirty laneways. If the disorder of the cities was a threat to certain women and the disorder of certain women a threat to cities, no. No, it was never the case. Cities were built around women the same as they were built around men. I don't know if you understand that, but men and women lived in these places. Men and women worked and raised families in these places. Men and women together were in these places. They were built around men and women. Hard for you to believe, right? The suburbs could provide a solution. Okay, let's see where you go with this one, because this will be interesting. Early ads for the London Tube depicted an area as gold as green, as refuges where women could be safe and conveniently preoccupied with homemaking and child rearing, while fathers could easily access the city via expanding underground routes. Actually, that's not a bad assessment of how the suburbs came about. They did follow the rail lines, and until the personal automobile, the roads had very little to play in that growth. But the minute the personal automobile came around, the areas around the railway stations grew into the suburbs we know today, the great widespread the horrors that you call cities. But yes, the expansion of the London Underground allowed for the expansion of the city away from the inner city, where it was less safe, where it was less. And again, this is selling the idea to women. But again, it's men who are less safe. There's no point in history when men were safer than women. Women have always been protected by men, right? You'd have to be pretty low down or doing something stupid to be less safe than a man and be a woman. Now, the job of women until fairly recently, and even now there are women who do this, is homemaking and child rearing. And fathers did have to access the city in order to work. So, yeah, I don't know why you thought this was a stinging rebuttal of the suburbs or whatever in the fuck you were running it off as. The cities were built around men and women, but the suburbs didn't just offer safety and child rearing, they offered a cleaner environment. And if you could afford to be out of the city, if you could afford that travel time, if you had that nice office job that paid you enough to afford the train backwards and forwards and whatever in the fuck else you had to do about affording to move out of the city, then of course you went for the clean living environments of the suburbs. And in those suburbs, around those train stations where this move started, there were shopping centres. And they focused on women because the men got on the train and they went to fucking work in the city. And the women had these shopping centres formed around their needs, around these stations, in these suburbs. Because again, we created around men and women. The needs of men and women were involved in every part of this growth. We didn't send women out to the fucking stand in a paddock while we built the cities, while the men built the cities, and then we invited the women back in. They were always there. They were always part of the growth. In the mass suburbanisation of North America in the 1950s, this fix for gender norms that became unstable during the war was quite explicit. No, you're an idiot. Developers, says Hayden, oh, God, that idiot woman came up again, argued that a particular kind of house would help the veteran change from an aggressive air ace to a commuting salesman who mowed the lawn. Oh, fucking ollie. The house would also help a woman change from Rosie the Riveter to a stay-at-home mum. Yeah, because the men were expected to come back home and go into the workforce. That's it. And some of these veterans couldn't go back into the workforce. They struggled to get it back into the workforce, or the working week had changed anyway. Because the development of weekends, holidays, these sorts of ideas all came through in the period of time that you're essentially talking about. Fucking hell. Re-establishing these norms was seen as necessary to ensure full access to employment for returning male soldiers. Yes. Because men were expected to be the wage earners. A lot of women returned back to the home, glad to be out of the workforce and back to doing what they did with their brand new washing machines. With its mangle and everything. You fucking dry the clothes while standing there. Didn't have to wring the fuckers out. What's less often understood is that this would enable access to another, no less vital kind of labour force, the unpaid woman, whose care work would keep the urban economy running despite being... So this is new. It's not that the women were already the carers and moved into the paid economy because, as I said, women took responsibility when responsibility was needed. All right, women took responsibility for their own lives all the time. And when the responsibility to earn was theirs, they did. When the men were at war, their responsibility was to provide their men with ammunition to support the war that they were at so that they would be safe to raise their families after the war was over. Now you're selling this as if suddenly unpaid women were in the house. There's no such thing as an unpaid person in the house. I, as an at-home father, know this. There is no such fucking thing. Right? Most of the mothers I know, they'll sit around, they have coffee together at the coffee shop, they go to the park with the kiddies 2-3 days a week, they got daycare, some of them have got jobs part-time and the kids go off to daycare to be raised 3-4 days a week, and all this shit's going on, right? They're letting other people raise their kids. They sit around and have coffee together while they don't even watch their fucking kids. Now, I've been an outsider, because fathers, at-home fathers, are not invited to come to these coffee things with mothers and so forth. And on the rare occasions where I've had to go to playgroups and things to get my sons involved with other kids, because I'm not invited to these things, I get to see what these mothers do. Now, in my time parenting, I started a business. I went on the road doing my business on the road. I included my family in my business. I only had to work a certain amount of weekends a year. But on some of those weekends, some of those big weekends, the big earning weekends, I take my family with me and we would turn the whole thing into a family holiday. That's what I did. None of this sitting around drinking fucking coffee shit. I ran a cinema as part. I bought the local cinema as part of my business, as an investment for my local business. As an investment in my community, actually, cost me fucking a fortune. But yeah, it was an investment in my community. Small towns, someone's got to fucking do it. And I ran the local radio station for 5 years, a local community radio station, as a volunteer for 5 years. So I did things because parenting allows you an amazing amount of time to do things. And most of the women I see accepting money from men who go to work to support them is sitting on their asses, getting fat, drinking coffee and eating biscuits. Don't fucking come the raw prawn with me on this shit, yes. Right, I'm going to have to start skipping ahead. There's no fucking way I'm reading the rest of this. It's going to kill me. I'm sorry, I think I saw that building in China. That's certainly People's Daily Newspaper, Beijing. There you go. See, the Chinese have a pattern of buildings that they have extended across their cities. Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Beijing. I saw this building design, because architecture is something I have a passion for myself. I saw this building design going up in Shenzhen. I do not remember seeing it in Beijing, but I definitely saw this one in Shenzhen. She's writing this up as a phallus. Does she? I mean, maybe it's the fucking the virtue signaler, but don't they understand this is a scaffold at the top? This isn't a fucking raw knob. This is a scaffold. This is where people are working at the top of this building. And I'm telling you now, in China, half of this fucking scaffold is built out of bamboo. It's the most amazing thing to see. But yes, it's a building. When it's finished, it doesn't look anything like that. I've seen this design at least half a dozen times in different cities across China. Probably more often than that, because there are really about 12 different designs that go up time and time and time again. They don't seem to be investing in new architecture. I've seen this building. I know this building. I've seen this building in Shenzhen. This one. This one says it's in Beijing. And shut up, phone. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just getting past all this because I'm over it, right? She's in lockdowns, and she'd probably go Black Lives Matter and children, but it's all just fucking ranting bloody feminist shit. She's got no fucking idea what she's talking about. Seriously, I mean, see this skyline. Do you see this back here in this image? This is square block towers. This is where people live. right? I've been in and around these tower blocks. I know people who live in these sorts of tower blocks, right? I have spent nights living in these, nights staying in these tower blocks. This is housing. This is just, they're like just tower blocks. How do you describe a fucking tower block? So this is a commercial building. This has a slightly decorative purpose. It's not built to look like a dick. It's built to look like a rounded building. Jesus Christ. How do you even start to explain to these people? All right, let's just pick up this paragraph here and read it, because I've got to do something. I fucking almost died laughing with this bloody article earlier on. The problems weren't created by coronavirus. The pandemic is merely exposing the fact that cities have been content to ignore domestic violence. Yes, domestic violence against men went up and down against women. Get fucked if you think that's a thing. Not seeing it as an urban problem deeply connected to such issues as housing, employment, transportation, childcare. No. Well, it's not connected to the wage gap, because that doesn't fucking exist. You're an idiot. You keep going back to that. As to housing, employment, transportation, childcare. Well, yeah, looking after kids can drive you insane. But these, in some of your earlier things, are the stresses put on men. And you don't want to consider the stresses put on men and what it might do to their psyche. The fact that so many ways the feminist organisations in Australia have had to try to prove that domestic violence had gone up during the pandemic was fucking ridiculous. They actually took a men's support line, a helpline for men, and took the 12% rise in calls from men to be a 12% rise in domestic abusers, not in men abused. Across the board, domestic violence calls went down about 38%. So what they had to do was say that more people were searching for it on Google, therefore there must have been an increase. Now, we've had a little bit of time now to relax our lockdown, and there has been no spike in reporting, which we would have seen if the other feminist excuse, oh, people can't call. Men can apparently, but women can't. So abused men can find a way to call, but abused women can't. Think on that one. But because they can't call, that means that there's just more happening, but they're not getting the message out. Well, if that was true, when the husband started to go back to work, we should have seen a spike in reports. And there's been nothing. In the US, there has been a report that divorce is down because people are spending their time in their houses actually working on their relationships, not out undertaking the external stresses of life. Housing, employment, and transportation. Now, housing still becomes a stress if you're low income and you're not paying for your rent or whatever. But employment and transport are external threats to a family. Yeah. Just get stuffed, woman. Ultimately, tackling domestic violence may mean unsettling the heterosexual nuclear family in ways that it would be deeply disruptive to the status quo, namely disruptive to the long-standing reliance on the single-family home as a place of unpaid care work. Get fucked. I've just been over that, right? I am paid for what I do. What I do is I look after someone else's children. What I do is look after someone else's household. I pay the bills for them, make sure that make sure they have a house and a roof and electricity to come home to. That's my job, and they pay me to do that job. I don't know who the fuck you think should be paying me to do that job. What, The taxpayer? I'm sorry, I don't think it's the taxpayer that decided that I should stay at home and raise children. And I've been a proper parent. My children have never been in daycare. My children have always been in my care. I've been doing it the right way. And that's not to say that the people who think they need to go to work or have had jobs and they want to continue them weren't needing of these services. But really, as a parent, it is my job to raise my children, not some fucking stranger that I pay $10 an hour or whatever in the fuck you pay them. So I'm going to stick to that. I did it the right way. I stayed at home and raised my children. As to being disruptive to the heterosexual family, untrue. It will be provenly untrue after this, but I suspect they're going to hide the figures for as long as humanly possible. So, namely disruptive to the long-standing reliance on single-family home as a place of unpaid subsidies, housing, rent and it's just all bullshit. Again, you're just dragging shit out your ass. And again, am I in the same fucking article? Because where's this thing about architecture? You dropped architecture within the first, 2 paragraphs. You just about got to a 3rd paragraph when you talked about someone else. And architecture just fucking disappeared from this. It just became another feminist rant about how terrible men are, how terrible families are. The nearest we got back to architecture was this picture of a building with bloody scaffolding around the top of it. Jesus H. Alright. Feminist City by Leslie. I'm a fucking retarded bitch Kern was published by some bloody retarded twisted arseholes on the 7th of July. The price was £12.99. Fucking £12.99 more than anyone should pay for anything. It's fucking bullshit as this crap, which should have been published in The Onion. Alright, look, I've dragged on. I fucking dragged on for an hour again. This thing just bloody killed me. It was... I'll tell you what, we'll put the virtue signal back up on the way out. There you go. Make sure that this is all captured and done the right way. We'll make sure that they get their superheroes to the right place. Fucking hell. Fuck! Alright, see you in the next one. May gods remain fictional, all that stuff. Ciao.